Some devastating news out of the world of comics. One of the most prolific artists of any genre has passed away at the age of 80. If you've ever picked up a Marvel or a DC comic book, you may be familiar with the name Neal Adams. Neal Adams was responsible for saving quite a few franchises back in the late 60s and early 70s with his photorealistic approach to the way that he drew comics. Some would argue that his most important contribution was to the Batman. He was able to bring it out of the 1960s cap that aired on ABC television for years into a dark, realistic portrayal of who the Batman was originally supposed to be. He was also responsible for creating some of the most prolific characters in the Batman canon. The one that springs to mind is Ra's al Ghul, the Demon's Head. To me, one of Neal Adams' most important contributions was in the social commentary that he and writer Denny O'Neil told. The Green Lantern Green Arrow series was a prime example of that. They dealt with drug abuse, war, and racism. One of the most important sequences in comic book history was out of one of those Green Arrow, Green Lantern books, where they're confronted by an old black gentleman who asks the question. He makes a statement, and I'm paraphrasing here. I heard about what you've done for the green skins and the purple skins and the blue skins, but why haven't you done anything for the black skins? Those panels hung in the air, and the tension that you could feel coming off of that page. If you can find that issue, treat yourself and do that. Adams' other important contribution, in my estimation, was the creation of Jon Stewart, the first black Green Lantern. This came at a time where racial tensions were very high, in the midst of the civil rights movement and everything going on with it. Here's Neal Adams telling the story of how he created Jon Stewart.
So I go into my editor's office and I say, Julie, we ought to have another Green Lantern. And he says, I already have one. We got Guy Gardner. I said, I'm sorry, Julie, I don't read the comic books. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. He said, Guy Gardner, he pulls out a volume of bound comic books, right? And he flips and he goes, see, Guy Gardner, and this is this blonde, white, Anglo-Saxon Protestant gym teacher. And I said, okay, so this would be my plan. We hit him with a bus. Why do we hit him with a bus? Well, because if we just break his arm, he's gone for like a month and a half and he's back. But if you hit him with a bus, he's going to have internal injuries and all kinds of, he could be gone for a year or two. Why do you want to do that? I said, well, I think we ought to have another Green Lantern. Why do you think we ought to have another Green Lantern? Well, okay. Alien comes to Earth. Purple alien comes to Earth. He's going to die. His ring goes out to find the bravest man on Earth. It passes by Batman, Superman, all the heroes of the DC and Marvel universe, finds Hal Jordan, test pilot. I'll buy that. Test pilots have balls of steel. Would you be a test pilot? You could die, yeah. And in fact, probably will. Okay, so I'm there. I like that. I got it. So now the ring's going to go out again, and it flies around, passes Batman, Superman, all the heroes of the DC and Marvel universe, and finds a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant gym teacher in the Midwest. Really? Really? That's it? A gym teacher? Really? Pretty boy gym teacher? I don't know. Is it me? I think that's as stupid as a tree. Really? You don't know. Julie said, what's wrong with that? I said, Julie, do you watch the Olympics? She said, I watch the Olympics. I say, how often do you see three white guys? I'm just saying, how often, really? I see Asians, I see blacks, I see whites. I rarely see three white guys. Gold, silver, bronze, maybe in archery. or shot put. Really, I just don't see it. It's not, maybe it's me, but, my understanding is that there's like 3 general populations in the world. There's Asian, there's black, and there's white. And they're kind of equal. I think it's a bad view of the world. He said, you want a black Green Lantern, don't you? Oh, Julie, am I that shallow that you can see through me so easily that I'm just, yeah, I'd like to have a black. I said, I'll take an Asian Green Lantern. He said, what if I give you an Asian Green Lantern? I said, that'd be fine. So I said, unfortunately, you have a really bad reputation with Asians. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you have this guy that's Hal Jordan's best buddy for 10 years, and he's Asian, and you call him Pie Face. Well, we didn't mean that as an insult. I'm sorry? Bring 10 Asians in here and ask him if Pie Face is an insult. I mean, it's really, that's Julie. Well, okay, so we'll have a black Green Lantern. I said, no. We won't have a black Green Lantern. We will have a college graduate, no gangbanger who suddenly gets a superpower and decides to become a hero. College graduate, professional man. He's got a job. He's got a profession. I don't want some guy off the street. He says, fine. He says, you're going to have to draw it. I said, hold on a second. Not only am I going to have to draw it, as far as I know, I'm the only comic book artist in the business that can draw black people. Most, even black artists, draw black people like white people. They have these straight noses and they're sharp, and they do that thin lips or regular, That's not how black people look. They look like black people, just like Asians look like Asians. Said, fine. Denny O'Neil's going to write this script. Wrote a great script, gotta say. Good script. Followed his instructions just right. Okay, and I read the first page. And I come to the name. Lincoln, Washington. So I go to Denny, I say, Denny, Lincoln, Washington. Denny says, not me, Julie. It's Julie's decision, Julie's name. Oh, shit. Fine. I go down the hallway, and I go to Julie's room, and I close the door, and I lock it, because there's going to be some yelling. It's like, Julie, Lincoln, Washington. He says, what? I know lots of guys with names like that. I said, Julie, it's a slave name. Everybody that's got names like that, they're changing their names. They're like, you can't do that. I'm not going to do it. I'm out of here. He said, well, you pick a name. I said, just get a bunch of names and stick them in a bowl and pick one name out. He said, well, you do it. You pick a name. Fine, Jon Stewart. Now, how would I know he'd become a late-night comedian? Really, how would I know? So anyway, that's how we got Jon Stewart. Last part of the story, well, of course, we know that the movie was made, lost $150 million. Why? Because Jon Stewart wasn't in it. Yep. Why? Because, I don't know, DC Comics and Warner's, that when they announced it, even when they announced it, they said, it's going to be Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, and all the kids in America went, who the hell is Hal Jordan? Because they watched the television show, right? They knew who Green Lantern was. Jon Stewart, no question. So they lost $150 million. I don't think that's going to happen again. Another ending to the story. I just finished coloring the story. Hand it in. Sal Harrison, head of production, and Julie Schwartz come marching down the hallway. You have to understand, we were in a time of change. Okay? Everybody's a little sensitive. Except me. No, everybody's a little sensitive, okay? So they come down the hallway, and Julie defers to Saul. And Saul says, Neal, we got the color guides here for this Jon Stewart Green Lantern thing. I said, yeah? He said, you colored him kind of dark. I said,
oh my goodness.
I said, yeah. Well, if usually when we do black people, we usually color them light brown.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I know that. And Jon Stewart isn't light brown. He's dark brown. Well, are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to? You can just change the numbering on him, and make him light brown. I said, yeah, I could do that. I'm not gonna. But you could do that. I could do that. I said, let me say this. You have to understand, this statement is a victim of its time. We're talking about the late 60s, early 70s, I forget when. So it's a victim of its time. You cannot blame somebody today for what was said in the past.
That is true.
Even though it's tragically funny. You still can't, but it is tragically funny. He said, are you sure black people won't be offended? I said, I think they've been offended for about 50 years.
Yeah.
No, you know what? If you get a letter, you just give it to me. I'll be glad to answer it. I don't think that's going to happen.
That's insane.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Neal Adams, passing away at the age of 80. Complications of sepsis. As far as I'm concerned, the most important artist in comic book history. Not because of his incredible talent, that goes without saying, but because of the bravery that he showed during a time when it wasn't popular to deal with social issues and racism. For that, he will always have my undying gratitude and respect. Mr. Adams, thank you. Thank you for the memories.